I think the film it's kind of got a multi-generational appeal. And I think the characters in the film are very endearing, and the film has a lot of humor, and it's got this incredible soundtrack, and it's very exciting. And, there's a big problem, and then we go about solving it, and it just feels like you want these characters to win, and I just think it's just generally appealing because of that. It works. I've been waiting to work on the sequel for the last 4 or 5 years. Yes. I just love working with Garth. He's just a brilliant creative mind, and so generous of spirit, and so emotionally available and enthusiastic, and man, he just thinks outside of the box. He's just got just a delicious brain, and I was excited to play with him again. It's just really he's a wonderful collaborator. I think she, Ash in the first Sing really, she's got this kind of relationship that's sort of holding her back, and she's not yet kind of found her own voice. She's sort of living in the shadow of her boyfriend, who's kind of a jerk. And when she finally gets enough confidence to shed him, she sort of realizes that she's, I think, deserves a seat at the table. And it's a really very inspiring journey to watch her come to that place. And in this film, she uses that experience to help another character rediscover their voice and find their footing again after a huge loss. And I think that's a very admirable act. I don't know. I think they both have a love of music, and that's what sort of they both, I think, recognize in the other person a true artist, and they have a mutual respect for one another because of that. I think when Ash speaks to Clay, she really, he understands that she gets him, she gets his music, and it opens the door a little bit because he's so guarded. She kind of gets her foot in a little bit that way. Yeah, it's interesting because it kind of the song is sort of reinterpreted in this film, and it takes on a different kind of meaning, I think. The Clay character is grieving and, hasn't really been able to kind of take the next step. He's stuck, he's stuck in his grief and can't see the future, I think, without his beloved wife by his side. He just doesn't know what life could be, this new chapter is going to be like for himself. And I think it's very, it's sort of a perfect song. The words kind of take on a different kind of meaning this time around. It's I think more about the kind of overcoming of fear and overcoming, just I think a devastating loss, and how do you go on? It's about a different kind of change, I think. Yeah, it's my 13-year-old dream come true is singing a duet with Bono. I never in a million years would have ever thought I would be at least singing a duet with Bono that any other person would hear. Maybe in a bar at 4 a.m. with Bono makes sense to me, but the fact that we're on a soundtrack is crazy. And then yesterday he told me he played it for the band, and my mind was kind of blown at that. Yeah, I mean, I love Stuck in a Moment. It's been one of my favorite songs from, like high school and before, and I just, yeah, it's very surreal. Yeah, I mean, I experienced it myself the first thing when, it's interesting because we all record our parts in sort of a vacuum, and then, we don't necessarily know, and it's over years, and so to see it all put together, we don't necessarily know what else is going on for any other character in the film, even though it's part of, big ensemble, and, that third act of the first thing, like, I was so verklempt, I was like emotional and happy and sad and cheering and excited, and there was like this adrenaline that came with I loved it so much. And then I looked next to me, and like my, at the time, 3 or 4-year-old daughter was having her experience with the story, and all of her friends were, just the characters are so they're just very well fleshed out. They just feel like very real, well, I would say people, but they're animals, but they're completely relatable. Yeah, you just root for them. You want them to win. And I think it's, that sort of like, it feels that way, like it feels multi-generational because of that. I always like doing voice work. I've done a lot of it in different ways, in animated films and film. As an actor, you kind of have two tools. Like you have your physicality and you have your voice, and then you take one of those things away, and you're suddenly hyper aware of, what you don't have, and you're focused on the kind of nuance of that one tool, and yeah, I don't know whether it's liberating or not, but it's definitely like intense kind of work that's just it's just different. It's just something different, and has its own challenges, and I like that. I like doing stuff that feels, like some kind of puzzle you have to solve. And I mean, working with Garth is the best partner to do that with, because he's got plenty of suggestions and lots of enthusiasm, and he can kind of, I think he knows it when he has it, and he hears it in his mind, and then, he's sort of right there with you, and he'll work at something until it's perfect, and then he knows when to like step off the gas, and it's just, yeah, he's a fantastic director. He's a great actor's director and a wonderful writer. Yeah, it's sort of, it was interesting recording it over the quarantine time, because we were all working separately of one another, and it was the only opportunity for me to kind of perform during that time, and I really looked forward to those sessions, because it gave, I don't know, it was just so reassuring to know that we were making something for the future, and it just helped me kind of like dream about what that was going to be, and now here we are, and it's just a wonderful thing to be able to celebrate this with people in person and with our families in person, and it's a movie that's so much about overcoming personal obstacles, and finding like a united voice, and I think it's just it's the right time for it. Serendipitous.
Very much so. I similar to audiences, like when I saw the film for the first time at the Toronto Film Festival with an audience, it was the first time I saw it, and I was really blown away by it. It was so beautiful, and so many great songs, and it's funny and touching, and then I was very excited that they were going to make a second one, and then the second one I just recently watched, and it kind of exceeded my expectations. It's such a funny and sweet, and it's just visually stunning. It's kind of everything you would want, especially right now. It feels like a movie that I think people will really be excited to go see right now, because of what a crazy couple years it's been. Exactly. I think the first, yeah, it was the first one was about this competition. This one is they've now created this show together, and they're ready to take it to the next level. So they go to Redshore City, which is kind of like Las Vegas, and you watch them, the struggles and trials of putting on a show and working together and coming up against a bunch of obstacles. But ultimately, the film is it's about how a group of friends come together to put on a show, and the joy of that, and part of the joy is how hard it is to put on a show, and this movie is an example of that. So, uh, Gunter. I'm sorry. I'm still. Yeah.
We were talking about where Gunter was at the beginning. Oh, and the rest of the
Thank
film,
you.
really.
So so the whole team they're doing their show in their city at their theater that Buster Moon has put on, and there's this feeling of like, let's take it to the next level, let's step it up, and they enter the bigger arena of Redshore City, where there's tons of shows, and so the goal is to put on a bigger show with a larger spectacle and larger breadth, and all the challenges of trying to make that happen. And in this case, Gunter becomes, and the second film has a much more central role as a creative force of like what this new show should be about. And I think it's fun to see a wide-eyed character who is incredibly positive and thinks anything is possible. Oftentimes, those people are great to have writing a show, and also they make it much more difficult. Whenever in doubt, trust the German pig. They always have the best ideas for live stage shows, and I've said that for years. Yeah, he turns out to have a great idea, and it becomes, without even kind of out of nowhere, becomes the way that they follow. And it's as someone who writes a lot and collaborates with people, it's a good reminder that you can't, everyone can have a great idea. You just have to sort of listen to everyone, and sometimes those people will come out with the best idea that you would never have thought of. Well, the idea of this show that's out of this world is, I guess, really according to Gunter. So there's some space, there's some sci-fi elements, and then there's action, and there's romance. It's Gunter is a stand-in for what audiences always want to see, which is a lot of big soaring spectacle and drama and excitement, and in this case it pays off to put on a show that's truly out of this world. Well, I obviously I get to voice him, so it's very fun for me to play a character who is so positive and has such an open, bright-eyed perspective on the world. And I also really love the way he dances, and his physicality is tremendous, which I don't take any credit for. So I didn't, until I saw the movie, I didn't realize how kind of beautifully he was going to move. And I kind of, every time I see it, it tickles me, because there's no way I could dance nearly as well as Gunter. But I get to take some credit for it. Absolutely. To be exactly who you are, and to not shy away from it, and to embrace your enthusiasm for the world is a really great message, not only for the people watching the film, but for me as well, as a performer, as a writer. It's a good reminder for me to not be afraid to just sort of embrace it all and take in the world. Yeah, it's in the first film, Gunter and Rosita, a lot of their work was together, and I think it's so funny. It's so funny to think about it, but I think that's what's so surprising about this film, is how emotional it is. And like, someone like Rosita's character, voiced by Reese Witherspoon, it's weirdly for a film about a bunch of singing animals, it's incredibly human. I find it oftentimes very moving, and I think Gunter is there to support his friend Rosita as she tries to get over some of her fears in the first film and in this new film. And it's like a joy to see them interact and to see them support each other. Yeah, it is very strange how relatable they are, and I'm blown away by, it's a big cast. There's a lot of main characters, and Garth Jennings, the writer and director, does an amazing job of tracking all of these stories, and you are really following, Tori's character and Reese's character and Taron's character and Matthew's character and their journeys inside of this film, and all the new characters like Bono and Scarlett's character, and all these other stories that are coming through, and somehow they managed to sort of pay them all off in a really pleasing way.
Fully fleshed out.
Yeah, it's hard enough to make a 2 or 3 main characters in a film make their stories have a fulfilling arc that you're watching, and somehow in Sing 2 they've managed to do that with a number of characters, storylines, and you never lose sight of each character. Even when you're on someone else, you're like, oh, what's happening with Clay Calloway's story? And then all of a sudden you're back there with Bono as Clay Calloway, and they just do a beautiful job of tying them all together and making that. I think that's part of the film. I mean, it's got great songs, it looks great, it can be funny, but it is a very emotionally gratifying film to watch, and I think that's what makes people go back to watch it over and over again. I mean, Garth Jennings is he's a great collaborator. He's super enthusiastic. He's incredibly supportive. But he also has great ideas and great notes when you're recording. He will make sure to get what he needs, but he's also more than open to suggestions and ideas when I'm in the booth with him. What I don't get to see, I only am a part of the recording process. What I don't get to see until the movie is finished, or until he shows me pieces as it's moving, is the visuals of this film. And I know that there's a massive team at Illumination and in Paris and beyond that are drawing and making and bringing this movie to life visually. But at the center of that is Garth, who has a background in music videos and really knows how to shoot and create not only the comedic scenes, but also how to shoot a visual, a big song and dance number. And that's not easy to understand the geography of where your characters are living inside of those moments. And they just do a masterful job of on these very specific, very intimate moments, and these massive, show set piece moments that are, the scope and scale are unbelievable. I mean, it's a wonderful way of acting because, I'm in there for like 2 to 3 hours every few months versus all day, every day, waiting for lighting changes and waiting for sun and waiting for all the stuff that is wonderful about live action. But shooting this way for me, recording this way, there's an ease to that, but also anything is possible. When you're doing animation, you can discover something new on the day, and if it's good enough, then they can begin to work that into the script and eventually into the film. And Garth knows that I have my own animation background, and in that I make my own shows, and so he's just very collaborative and very. But he, when you watch him, because it's oftentimes, he's in Paris and I'm in LA, and he's, oh, great, Nick, yes, I love it, yes, one more time, do it just like that, yes, Nick, and that enthusiasm is infectious, and it makes you want to give him what he is going for, and it makes for a very fun, engaging, enlivened process. I mean, it's super fun. It's like, again, I'm not a professional singer, so the idea that I'm singing like Prince or U2 or Ariana Grande is, I'm gonna send them each written apologies. But it's amazing. I mean, these are all songs that I either grew up with or are massive current hits. And you know, that's it's very fun. It's very fun for me to sing as Gunter. I'm much more comfortable singing as Gunter than I am as myself. So the catalog is insane. I mean, I think there's over 40 songs in this, and it's just like it's, you know, knowing that kids are going to watch the movie and get up and want to dance along to the songs and stuff like that. Knowing now that having done one of the movies and how much the kids love all the music, it makes it only that much more exciting to know that the second one is coming now too. I agree. Yeah, no, it really is like it is a film for everyone, and I do think that the messages are great. It's just like, you know, it's okay to have a big dream and to follow that dream, and I also love, you know, as someone who has been in doing this for 20 years or more, you know, trying to put on a show is hard, and you have to endeavor to do it, and you have to do it and collaborate with people. Very rarely is a show just one person, and I think this movie is a testament to that, of what does it take to put on a big show, and sometimes you have to rely on your collaborators,